Welcome back to Morning Live, and as I told you earlier, we want to talk about the gun ownership in this country because as it is, so many people are casualties and the licenses were revoked. Now, private gun ownership licensing has been so badly run that with 300,000 you could get a permit without any due diligence. And now, civilian gun owners in Nairobi have been given up to March 7th to return their firearms for scrutiny and vetting as Interior CS Fred Matiang'i attempts to regulate the industry infiltrated by cartels and brokers. Already, the Firearm Licensing Board and the Control Board, that is, has developed a microchip card that will have all the details of a firearm holder and which will replace the age-old certificate introduced in the 1950s. So shady was the licensing actually. Previously run by police that the country did not even have a credible gun register. Now, in this studio this morning, I'm joined by the chairman of the Gun Owners Association, that is Mr. Anthony Ohome, and security expert Bana Mwiti Mureidi, who will be taking us through all this confusion. Now, I'll start with you, Bwana Anthony. Yeah, I believe you went through the same scrutiny. Did you pass?
Yes, yes, gladly so.
All right.
Yes.
Now, it's unfortunate that some licenses were revoked. Some were fake. But you see, while you're going to be taken through the scrutinization, I believe someone didn't have an idea that it was fake. No one could have taken the fakeness in front of that panel or so.
Okay, thanks, Nick, for having me here again. But let me just say this. There was a moment in 2012 when the Inspector General for Police then shut down then it was called the Central Firearms Bureau. And it was controlled fully by the police. It was fully under the police. There was no board yet because the board came as a result of the Security Laws Amendment Act of 2014. Now, in 2012, when he shut it down, very many people looked for loopholes, okay, to get weapons because it was shut down for almost a year. And what they would do is they printed their own firearm certificates and they would backdate to the dates before the closure.
Okay.
And it was very rampant. It happened so much that at some point no one knew exactly how many fake firearm certificates were. So in as much as the CS for Interior, Dr. Matiang'i, is leading this onslaught on illegal firearms, it has a point to it. There's a genuine point to it. And I wouldn't say that the people who got the firearm certificate, a good number were innocent victims, but the majority knew what they were getting into. Why do I say that? Because a firearm license would otherwise cost 2,000 bob. That's what the government asks for.
Okay.
Once you've gone through the process and you've been vetted, when you're going to receive once you get a letter of approval and you're going to receive your firearm certificate, you'll be asked to pay 2,000 bob. Okay. So when someone else tells you they'll do it for you for 350,000.
For a 2K certificate. Actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A reasonable human being should see a problem. Okay? But they chose not to see it, they went ahead with it. Now they are paying for that.
Even $1 million bob.
There are some who paid $1 million, yes.
For a 2,000 shilling certificate.
Yes.
Wow.
But of course, there was a whole cartel where firearm dealers were involved as well. So the firearm dealer is in it to make sure that the firearms are being sold. So the firearm dealer will ensure that you get a certificate for as long as you're buying from him.
Yeah, sure.
So he's also selling. He's also making his sales.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And of course, all these were being backdated to the dates before. And after it was opened, of course, it went on. But why do I say they knew it? Because some have been renewing their licenses backstreet. They have someone who renews their license for them. They don't go to the Firearms Licensing Board, and they pay 20,000 bob for renewal, which should cost again 2,000.
Yeah.
So already they know. It's not that they don't know. So it would be wise for these people to take on the amnesty that the CS for Interior has given, which ends the day after tomorrow.
Wow.
Because thereafter, then they will be deemed to be in illegal possession. They will be treated as criminals. Right now, they can still take back their firearms and say, listen, I've had this certificate. I don't know whether it's genuine. Can you check it for me?
Wow. So, Banamwiti, do you think now it was rampant, whereby now private gun owners have been careless in one way or another? As a security expert, there's also that notion whereby you know very well that it was being used illegally. Yes, I have this certificate. I don't know whether it's actually genuine or actually legit, but I have a gun. I'm proudly a gun owner. But you see, as Anthony has actually told us, it seems that there's so much happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, thanks Nick again for having me.
Karibu sana.
Thank you. Now, the whole issue of gun holders and gun licensing, and the reason as to why it has been that expensive to acquire one, and people are willing to pay for that, is all that comes with having the gun itself. For apparently in Kenya today, for you to be a gun holder, it's not necessarily because you are under any threat. Actually, very few people knows the clause on self-defense. I was surprised to see guys having rifles, semi-automatic machine guns.
6.
Yes.
7.
And maybe that for protection. You see, we have different categories or different weapons for different jobs, for instance, if I may refer to them like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mr. Chairman, what the criteria they use on giving out these firearms, because
That's a very good question,
as a businessman, or rather, if you are in any threat, it means you are under policy of being reactive.
Yeah.
You actually take a gun to protect yourself, if need be, when you are under threat. And again, there are some factors that should be considered when actually getting the licenses. I believe the board should be so strict in issuing the licenses, such that it gives to the needy and the necessary people. You understand? Because apparently, the most important thing about the whole gun issue comes back to discipline.
Yeah.
You know, guns don't kill people. People with guns kill people. There are laws on concealment. I understand that.
True.
They should be there.
True.
And if you go back to countries that have had these laws before us, if we learn by experience and by other people's examples, we've had countries like UK, self-defense in itself is not a reason as to why you should own a gun.
Sure.
Because the government in itself does a lot to enhance and make sure that its civilians are protected. And if you come back to a country like Mexico, they've made it so hard for a civilian to have a gun, which has prompted the civilians to get the illegal arms because of the rise of the insecurity. You understand? Now, you see, there needs to be a balance.
Absolutely.
You understand? So basically, what guns and gun holders should have is, one, there need to be a lot of training, because it takes a lot for a civilian to be converted to a law enforcement officer. And this is not an overnight thing, because apparently I can afford, or rather I have any means of stuff. Guns by themselves are very beautiful things, by the way. Having the gun itself, it gives you a lot of confidence.
If you have viewers, you can put it on the table right now.
Yeah. You see, in itself, it gives you...
Very beautiful.
Actually, having the gun itself gives you a lot of confidence, because you know, at least you're protected.
Okay.
But then, the most important thing is not to find yourself in that situation where you need to use the gun. Let it be the last resort.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bwana Chairman, he's mentioned something very, very sensitive, that some people have rifles, semi-automatic situations. Now, what do you think about people who are actually given the green light to own such close combat rifles? Something that are only used at the battlefield, some of those battalions, the squadrons we have over there, and we have these things in the house. Why are these people given these machines?
Thanks, Nick. I agree that there could be some people who may have had one too many guns. You know, over the years they have applied for what you call a variation. If you had a license, then you apply for a variation because you want to add another weapon. And they keep adding and they keep adding and they keep being approved. But I must say at this point that there are quite a number of people in this country who take shooting as a sport.
Okay. Sure that.
I being one of them.
Absolutely.
I've been shooting actively since 1999.
Sure.
I won't ask you where you were in 99.
I
but
was around.
but I've been shooting since then.
Okay.
Now, you will find that shooting as a sport, just like athletics,
Yeah.
there are runners who we know do 100 meters,
Yeah.
200 meters, 400 meters. Now, do they use the same shoes for all these races?
No.
So that's the best way to explain it. There are people who will shoot .22 caliber,
Yeah.
they'll shoot air pistol, they'll shoot 9mm caliber, and then they'll shoot rifle. They participate in all of that.
Absolutely.
So with time, this person has acquired, say, 4. But it needs to be justified. I agree.
Yeah.
You can't just have weapons for the sake of having them. It's not a status symbol. It's not an extension of your manhood.
Because absolutely,
You
because even
understand?
headlines say his house or her house was ransacked and they found 6 rifles.
We need to ask, okay, was he justified, he or she,
Yeah.
justified in having all these rifles? And I agree, there could have been an abuse. But what we are saying as a National Gun Owners Association, there is a remnant from this whole group of people.
Okay.
There is a remnant of people
Okay.
who don't just carry guns for the sake of carrying them. They don't just have guns for the sake of having them.
Sure.
They actually actively use them for sport.
Okay.
And they represent this country. It's not actually for self-glory. Some even fund themselves to
Yeah.
go for these
Yeah.
competitions. But at the end of the day, when the national anthem is being sung on the other day, on the other side of the country, no one knows whether you funded yourself or you're just representing your country.
Okay.
It's the Kenya flag that's flying high.
It's true,
So there is that group of people. And I agree that there could have been abuse. There could have been abuse. But don't use the same kifagio
Yeah.
to fight the people
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
excessive weapons
Yeah.
as you're using with the people with actually legitimately are holding these things for sports.
All right. We're taking a short break now. When you come back, you want to focus on the amnesty issues. Now, what will happen for those people actually who haven't done what is expected? Because as it is, fake certificate, it means you have the rifle illegally and you're a criminal. So that the government will be coming for you. All that after a short break. Welcome back to Morning Live. Yes, the gun issue still in studio being discussed right here, and trust me, it's not something easy. And Anthony Wahome, the chairman Gun Owners Association, is in studio, and of course Mwiti Murei, the security expert, also in studio, touching base on this issue. Now, I'll come back to you because now there's an issue with also people who bring in these machines in the country. Now, as much as we will be touching base on this amnesty thing because it's ending tomorrow, is it, Bwana Chairman?
Day after tomorrow,
Absolutely.
7th.
Day after tomorrow, actually. Now, being able to buy what you love. You see now, as much as you're being now kind of restricted to own some machines, these things are available. So, the control, who is actually in charge of controlling these things in the country?
I'll actually, I'll actually refer that question to Mr. Wahome because mine is more basically on the training part.
Okay.
The attitude, the mindset, and the training itself. Because basically, if you are a gun holder, there is what we call tactical patience.
Okay.
What makes a policeman take in all the crap before he thinks of shooting you? Now, that is what should be taught, and that's what should be used by gun holders.
Okay.
Now, I believe that should be now a requirement for having guns. Like Mr. Wahome has just said, we have beautiful laws that are in this country. We have very honest guys in that particular industry. We have excellent people who are doing a good job. But unfortunately, whatever is making all these hullabaloos are the few people maybe who got got hold of those guns through illegal means. And now these are the point of the bone of contention.
All right.
Mr. Wahome put it so clearly that they have stringent ways and plans on how to execute the plans and the whole issue of gun control. But basically, my part is more or less of now what the whole issue of gun holders they should have. Because despite having a gun for shooting, for sport, despite having a gun for your own security purposes, we have an ultimate thing that should be equal, or rather should be constant. Like now, the temperament, the use of the gun, the concealment for that purpose. Because it's easier to conceal a handgun than a rifle itself.
Okay.
There are reasons as to why you should not supposed to, there are laws actually for gun concealment. Like a civilian is not supposed to expose the weapon itself. And because apparently we have different jobs for different guns. You understand? For instance, you as a civilian, I don't see a point, Mr. Home, a point of correction, you correct me, as to why you should have maybe a big gun to protect yourself if in that particular moment you're not in a position of fighting. Because like you said, we have rifles for long range combat, and we have shotguns for actually handguns are 45 to 50 meters combat. These are close quarter combat. So basically it all comes down to now the use of the particular weapon and now the discipline behind, because that's the most important. A gun itself is not anything bad, but then the use of it and the people behind it is now the biggest reason. Because we have so many people, our law enforcement officers, they take so much of a training only to handle a gun. You understand? We have so much training in place just to hold to hold that particular machine, because the risk involved for having a wrong gun in the wrong hands, a gun in the wrong hands, it's devastating.
Now, Mr. Chairman, a day after tomorrow, for those guys who are handling these illegal arms, what will happen?
I think Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and I think Kenyans are not new to him, was very categorical. He's repeated it, I think, twice. And he's not mincing words. He said after the 7th, it's going to be an all-out war. In other words, you'll be treated as any other criminal possessing an illegal firearm. If you're a civilian licensed firearm owner who's not come for the vetting, if you're a civilian licensed firearm owner who knows that you are holding an illegal firearm, you had better make amends in the next 2 days. Because there's an amnesty. He said, you know, if you have a firearm and you suspect that it's illegal, and Nick, I'll say there are many. There are very many, by the way. And I think what disturbs the government the most is they don't know how many there are. And much as this amnesty has been given, there's a deadline. And I don't want to think that there's any sane person out there thinking and waiting, let me see what they'll do. No. Because the Firearms Act is very clear on illegal possession. If you're treated like a person in illegal possession of a firearm, then the prisons department will be taking care of you for a very long time. That's what it means.
Absolutely.
That's what it means. And much as this has happened, I think going forward, what someone asked about rifles and the kind of rifles we have seen, I'll say in the past 5 to 10 years, there has been a lot of development in the manufacture of guns. And I think as a matter of priority, the regulatory body, which is the Firearms Licensing Board, needs to keep abreast with all these developments. Because I'll tell you, Nick, 5-7 years ago, there were no shotguns with magazines.
Absolutely.
Shotguns have been in existence for over 200 years, you know, but there have been no shotguns with magazines. Now we have shotguns with magazines. If you apply and you go to the Firearms Licensing Board, you'll just apply for a shotgun, 12-bore shotgun. But when the same regulatory authority allows a dealer to bring in a firearm with a magazine, and then you say it is illegal.
As a consumer, I think I'll see.
I'll go to the shop and see it. So if I see it in the shop and buy it, you cannot victimize me. That's what we are saying as a Gun Owners Association. These civilians did not bring in the weapons. it's almost impossible to import a weapon here. Okay, so they found them in the shops and they bought them. Okay,
Yeah.
they had a license. Yes, the weapon is a 12-bore shotgun, but it's semi-automatic. You can have semi-automatic or pump action, or you know, or side by side. You know, the side by side 2 holes. You know, all are the same caliber, but there's a contraption called a Roni. A Roni is a contraption that has come again in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You just put in your pistol, and it converts. You can hold it like a
You
submachine
can even
gun.
put it in your pocket,
But-
actually. Very short.
The board needs to decide, do they want to have this in circulation among civilians or not? If not, then stop the dealers from bringing them in.
Wow.
That's the point we are trying to make. You understand?
Okay.
So don't victimize the person who has it. Rather, stop it. At policy level, the board needs to have rules and regulations to enact the Firearms Act,
Okay.
which is not there right now. But they need to have that. At policy level, for example, there are countries which have gone a step ahead and said, okay, as a country, we are not going to have more than 2% of the population with firearms. Is that a direction we need to take, or is it open-ended?
Yeah.
We'll just keep taking people, taking applications, and then one day you wake up and you realize
Everybody
you
has
have,
a gun.
you know,
Everybody
like
has
South
a gun.
Africa, there are 10 million weapons in civilian hands.
Wow.
A few years ago, the government woke up and thought, my goodness, those are too many. They need to return them.
Yeah.
But you see, you're the one who licensed them.
Yeah.
You can't tell them to return them. They went to court and they won the case.
Yeah.
And the licensing authority was told no.
Interesting.
So at policy level, this is the direction we need
There's
to
so
take.
much that needs to happen.
Yes.
Now, something else, Wanamwiti, when we talk about owning a gun, there's so much that goes on with it. Now, ranges. We need to train our people also. Like, you can own a gun and don't have any technique. Now, the training part, are you confident in Kenya we have these ranges? Because as much as Bwana Chairman goes, takes part in sport, that means on his side, there's some finesse. You know, it's a sport. It's competitive. He has to train. Now, these people actually drawing guns in clubs all over, just trying to show that they have guns. Do you think they need some training also?
Of course, yes. And now that's where the problem is. Like what you had, you've heard Mr. Chairman say. Of course, it is a regulated field. And giving the licenses should also be part and parcel of the plans that the government has for these people. You should not give people licenses where they don't have anywhere to practice their techniques. For instance, you cannot be good at something that you don't practice often.
Absolutely.
You understand? And then we also have laws of having guns in drinking places or restaurants. Do we?
Yeah.
Like, for instance, you should not be intoxicated and at the same time be having a gun.
So there should be laws actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's there.
It's there.
It's there.
It's
Yes.
there.
So why are people actually...
That's now where we come to it, because guys have guns without knowing the repercussions of whatever they have. Having a gun has a lot of responsibility, and that's why it should be a process. It should be a process that people are vetted, like you said, what they have. It's happening now, to make you fit to have that particular weapon, because apparently there's so much that is involved in discipline. Actually, discipline. The word is discipline when you're having a gun.
Okay.
Because gun is not a spoon. A gun is not a spoon. It can cause havoc. Do you know what 20 rounds can do to this country, to Nairobi itself? The imagination of even what it can do, it's not anything even you'd want to think about.
Yeah, yeah.
But basically, what happens, and what should happen anyway, I'll give you an example with Czech Republic.
As we wind up, yeah.
Yes. For you to have a gun, you must pass a certain examination. You need to be trained in such a way that only training and not passing the exam won't warrant you to have the gun itself. I don't know what our body has in terms of now the vetting process.
Do they have any?
Because what should be done, as per me, it's not only having the gun or having the financial muscles of having the gun, but basically even what we say, the discipline and the passion, knowing that this weapon is either for sports, for self-defense, or for anything now that suits that particular purpose for that particular gun.
Okay. So how is Kenya doing sports-wise?
Sports-wise, we're doing very well. Last year we went to the Africa Championships in South Africa, and we did super good.
Interesting.
Super well.
Your last sentiment?
I'd like to just add on to what he said. At policy level, the laws are there.
Okay.
Regarding, for example, people having a weapon and getting inebriated or going to pubs, it's there.
Okay.
But it needs to be enacted. The law is there. It says the Firearms Act actually talks about every civilian licensed firearm owner being proficient.
Okay.
The same board is supposed to enable people when they apply for shooting ranges, because the government doesn't provide the ranges. So there are quite a number of shooting ranges. We have our shooting range in Kirigiti, Kiambu. It's an outdoor shooting range. Okay. There's a shooting range on Langata Road. It's an indoor range.
Yeah.
So proficiency is not actually, it's mandatory.
Okay.
But it has not been enacted, so that when you go to renew your firearm or to apply for a firearm, you need to pass a proficiency test so that you can get your firearm.
Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming. I believe Kenyans who own guns have learned something, one or two things, because now it's a sensitive area to touch on, but at the end of the day, we need also some sanity and safety as far as gun owners are concerned. Is it? And I believe so. Good job you're doing also. Please, let's have some guns out here, yes, but still, we need safety first.
You need to come to the range.
Yeah.
The shooting range,
I've
we are
there
allowed to display the guns here. There may be restrictions.
I know. That was, I was pulling your leg over there.
Yeah.
But still, I understand there's so much that happens in the shooting range, and people should go to this shooting range to actually train.
Yes.
Proficiency is very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're now taking a short break. When you come back now, Madam Dolly will be in studio, and she'll be talking about responsible parenting. So much is happening out here. All that after a short break.